So it's lesson 3, part 2. We're working on routing with Connect. So we've set up an application that uses Connect, and whenever requests come in at the root, which is just localhost 3000, they're handled by our index variable, which represents a callback function and prints out hello homepage. So if we go to localhost 3000/hello, we actually, instead of the message saying hello homepage, we want it to say hello world. Okay, so Simon says, yeah, we need to map the path. Okay, Simon, absolutely, you're right. So what line should we put that on? You're suggesting we map the path with an app.use statement from /hello. Okay, so what line would we put that code on, do you think? Okay, so we'll come down to line 16 after the root path. Simon and Adam agree. Okay, so we'll put on a second app.use statement. And I guess I should follow my own coding conventions with a single quote. So at the path hello, we want to call a hello function. Now, this code is underlined. It's saying that this is unresolved. So what do we need to do to fix this? We're trying to call a hello. Yeah, we need a hello function up above. So I'll actually move it. So we'll change this to be let hello equal. Yeah, so now we want a callback function. So same parameters as before, our HTTP request and our HTTP response. So it's going to be similar format. Yep. So what do we want to do inside our hello function? So notice by creating this variable, line 22 is now clear. The word hello is no longer underlined. So what should happen inside? Yeah, basically, let's write the head. So similar, absolutely, as Simon said, to index, we're going to write our 200 header. We'll write our hello world message, and we'll end the response. So now we actually have two different URLs mapped. We have our root path. So that's just localhost 3000. That should print out hello homepage. But if we go to localhost 3000/hello, it should print out hello world instead. Okay, so add the hello function, lines 14 to 18. And then we also want to add the hello mapping that Simon gave us on line 22. Now my site's running with NodeMon, so I shouldn't have to restart my server. It should restart automatically as I save those changes. And we can see that it's restarted. So let's try this out now. Let's go back to our browser and try it out. First, I'm going to try the root path again and make sure we get hello homepage. And then I'm going to add on /hello to the end of the URL, and our message should change from hello homepage to hello world. So let's give that a try. So first I'll try the root path, so just localhost 3000. And as expected, it shows hello homepage. Now, when I go to localhost 3000/hello, so what happened here? How come we got the hello homepage instead. So this didn't quite work. Good guess, Raymond. We don't actually need a second app.listen. Chris, you think it's the cache? Okay, well, I'll try a private window. I don't actually think it is. We'll go to 3000. I get hello homepage. Same. Yes, Adam, that's right. Okay, here's how we can tell that's the case. Right? What if I try a URL that doesn't exist? What do you expect should happen here? Is it going to load hello homepage, or is it going to load a 404, or is it going to give us a cannot get? What do you think will happen here? Yeah, we're getting the root path. So Adam is right. Yeah, we're getting the same page. So the order matters here, right? Because notice the /hello, it still starts with the slash character. So this app.use statement gets called anyway. So if this is kind of like our default root, we want this one to go at the end. So I'm going to swap the order of lines 21 and 22 and try this out. So I'll try it again. I'll go first to my root path and get hello homepage. But now when I go to hello, now I get hello world. So an important thing to note about how Connect works is it's cascading, right? The order that we write these paths in, it matters. You can see we get a very different result by switching the order of lines 21 and 22. I'm going to put, this is the default, so should go last. Yes, the rest of the order, Adam, doesn't really matter. It's a very good question. If we have a whole bunch of roots, it's only that the root path should always go at the end, because otherwise it overrides all the other paths, and we can never call any of those other functions. Okay, so your next task with this is to write a goodbye function that prints the message goodbye world and loads at the URL, and I'll put it in the chat, /goodbye. So create a goodbye function that prints goodbye world and takes any request routed to localhost 3000/goodbye would be handled by that function. So write your goodbye function and URL mapping, and then we're going to do one more thing with this. and try it out in your browser. So if you go to localhost 3000/goodbye, you get a goodbye world message. So what does our goodbye function look like? What should go in these brackets? First of all, on line 20, I'm going to create a goodbye variable that will take a callback function. Thanks, Adam. So again, we're going to use request and response. And then what do we want to do inside of our goodbye method? I know this is sort of repetitive. That's okay. A little repetition will help familiarize us with the process. Yep, we're going to, again, write our header of 200. Thanks. Yep, thanks, Chris. We'll write our goodbye world. And lastly, if we want this to complete and our browser not to hang, thanks, Shalou, we'll call res.end. Okay, so there's our goodbye function, highlighted here. Identical really to the other two functions, just we've used a different name for the variable we're assigning to the function, and a different message in our response.write. So now we need to set up the URL mapping. So we can put the mapping for the path in one of two places. Where should we put the mapping for the goodbye function and the goodbye URL? Okay, yeah, so anywhere above the root path. So we could put it before hello or we can put it after hello. Thanks, Chris, you posted the code we need. So any requests at /goodbye are handled by our goodbye function. So we now have 3 different requests, 3 different paths that we can handle. Our root path that shows hello homepage, our /hello path that shows hello world, and then our /goodbye path. So let's try this out now. So hello works. The root path works. Goodbye also works. So this should start to give you an idea of what the routing looks like in Connect and also how it's going to look in Express. That we point a URL either to a specific function or later, because we are going to be using the MVC pattern, we can point a particular URL pattern to a controller. And then based on the full URL, we'll map each request URL to a specific function that will interpret that request and then decide what kind of response to send back. So to give you an example, in the MVC world, let's say we have something like a orders controller. In our main server file, we'll map any requests from orders. I'm just putting this in the chat, but I can put it in here. So any requests from orders will get handled, will get sent to our orders.js controller. And then within that controller, we'll be able to map the different URL paths. Actually, I could probably show you an example of what this looks like in a real repository. Maybe I'll do that. Rather than putting it in the chat, we can go look at So what is this going to look like when we use express? So in here, we had a foods controller and a countries controller. And then we'll use express to map underneath all this security stuff. We're going to map the paths. So any URLs that start with /foods are sent to the foods controller. Yeah, I'm wired. I was using Wi-Fi, but I am wired in now. Can you see okay now? Okay. Yeah, let me know. If you pause and you can't see anything and it persists, then just stop me in case I need to go over something again. Because I don't get any indication. So any URLs that start with /foods are directed to the foods controller. And then any URLs that start with /countries are handled by the countries controller. And then within this controller, we look at the next part of the URL. So in our foods controller, for example, at the root, we would go and grab a list of foods and display them. At /add, we would display a form. So this routing kind of is very similar to the routing that we did in our .NET class. The difference is in .NET, the URL pattern, it routes automatically. Whereas in Node, we manually have to set up these paths with the use command. It's not smart enough to automatically interpret a URL and know where to go. We have to set up all of the URL routing manually. Now, we want to make one more change to this file. Which is, if I do this, right now it just takes me to the home page. And if we check our network response, it actually gives a 200 OK response and shows the home page. This is functional, probably not very well coded. What should happen instead at any URL besides the root, hello, or goodbye? Yeah, I agree, Jason. We should probably show a 404 instead. So we can add some logic into our index method that actually checks the request URL. If it is legitimately just a /, we're just at the root, we can print hello homepage and a 200 response. But if the requested URL is something else, we want to show a 404 response and a different message instead. So we're going to wrap this inside a little bit of logic. So I'm going to indent the code here. So if request is at root, go homepage message. So you're going to say if our request object.url is equal to a /. And I'm going to move that code inside this block. Otherwise, user has requested a URL that doesn't exist. So show 404 not found. So in this case, we're going to write a 404 header. And we want to send a response that says the page is not found. And lastly, we're going to end our response. So if there's nothing after the slash, oh, and yeah, we haven't really looked at this. For recommending we replace with a triple equal sign. What's the difference in JavaScript between a double equal sign and a triple equal sign? I will accept the suggestion. Right, Adam, thank you. So the double equal sign, it just compares two values. Are they the same or not? But it ignores the data types. So for slightly more accuracy, this code would still work with the double equals, but it's more accurate. I'll accept the code hint and use a triple equals because it also checks the data type. This is a string and this is a string. And they have the same values. So now, if I go back to the browser, our root path should still show hello homepage. But now these are the only 3 allowed URLs. Any other URL I try should return a 404 response with a page not found. So I can go to my root and it gives me a 200. It's looking for a favicon. I won't worry about that for now. I can go to hello. And I get a 200 okay, goodbye. I get 200 okay in the right response. But now I can do anything else. And now we get a page not found with a 404. So this is a little bit better. It worked before we did this check, but our site is more accurate now. We should be showing 404 at any URLs that don't exist. Okay, so there's our completed little 3-page example using Connect. And we could, I didn't add any content type, so it's just giving us plain text responses. We could have added the content type like we did last week, set it as HTML and added HTML formatting, but I don't think it's really necessary. The main thing I wanted you to take away is how Connect and the routing works. That we map a specific URL to a specific function. And then we handle the HTTP request and we send a custom HTTP response based on the URL of the request. Okay, now we only have a couple little things to do with this. We're actually done with the code on this page. Does anybody have any questions about the examples we've done here using Connect and using the routing? We will work with this again in a similar way with Express starting next week. All right. Okay, I'm going to do 2 little things. Thanks for the feedback. 2 more things with this project that have nothing to do with the code in this file. I probably should have done both of them when I created my project, but I'm going to do them now. I'm going to first stop my server. And I should have done this before we added Connect. We should always initialize npm and use the npm init command we worked with last week to build a package.json file. But it's not too late. I can do that now. So I'll just clear my terminal. So I'm going to run the command npm init, and then I'm going to walk through the prompts to generate a package.json for the project. So I'll hit enter. So the package name will be lesson 3. I'll hit enter. Version 1.0.0. It's fine. Description, I'll call it routing with connect. The entry point, so the startup file. Well, this is easy. It's saying server.js. That's the only file in here. So, okay, I'll hit enter. Test command, there isn't one. I'll hit enter. Git repository, for now, there isn't one. I'll hit enter. Keywords, I'll hit enter. Author, I'll put in my GitHub username. License, I'll just hit enter. Then it previews the package.json. Ask me if this is okay. I can just hit enter. And now we've got package.json and a lock file. And notice it already recognizes that we installed Connect, so it adds Connect automatically to our list of dependencies. The last thing I'm going to do here is I want to add a node gitignore file. So when I upload my code to GitHub, the node modules folder should not be included. I neglected to do this in time last week, but we should be doing this before we add any files or make any git commits. So where do you get the node gitignore? The link is on Blackboard, but I will put it in the chat for you as well. I'm going to put it in the chat. Getting the content is a little tricky. We don't want to download the file. We need to copy the code from the file and save it. And that's because it's got this bizarre name. So I'll open up and go to the raw. And then I'm just going to copy all the code to my clipboard. And then in my code editor, I'm going to make a new file and call it .gitignore. And then I'll just paste in everything. So I haven't done any adding, any committing. I haven't done any git commands at all in my project yet. I wanted to get the gitignore file in here first. Now I can add, commit, make a new repository, and push my code to GitHub, and the node modules folder with all of these dependencies, it will get excluded. So now I'm going to run the command. I'll do git init to initialize git. I'll run git add dot git commit -m lesson 3 routing with connect. Now I'll go to GitHub and create a new repository. I'll connect my remote and I'll push. All these commands are on Blackboard for you. Probably a lot of you remember them from last term. Speed routing with connect. I'm going to create the repository. I will add my remote and push the code, and we can see what the gitignore does. I'll just copy that line. And now when I push my code, because I've got the gitignore for node, you'll notice my server.js file is here, and my package.json is here, but the node modules get excluded. So this keeps my project light on GitHub. So we should be using that node gitignore file for our projects. We don't want to upload all the dependencies when we push to GitHub. So that was everything I wanted to cover today. You do have a few things to do for next week. Okay. And just a reminder that every week on Blackboard, there's a checklist telling you what you need to do by next Tuesday. Okay, so in one of my other classes, I had a student say, I didn't know we had stuff due. Always check, please check the checklist. I have put them in all my Blackboard shells for every week. So if you're watching the lesson asynchronously, or you didn't quite finish our in-class coding exercises, our for loop and our server.js, make sure you work on those to get familiar with those things. I'm going to go over lab 1 in just a moment, which is due next Tuesday. There is also a quiz in the lesson 4 folder. It's a short answer quiz on weeks 1 to 3. I think there's 5 or 7 questions. So you need to complete both the lab and the quiz by 5 o'clock next Tuesday. So I'm going to go in and we'll have a look at the lab. So here's what you have to do. You're going to create a new project. Sorry, this should say Comp2068. Lab 1, my apologies. I'll update the document. This course has 2 different codes. So it's 2068. My apologies. I will update the document. I'll just redo that. Okay, we'll try that again. So create a new project in your code editor. Yes, it did. Call it Comp2068-Lab1. As soon as you create the folder, initialize npm, and follow the prompts to generate the package.json file, so that process we just went through. You'll then want to install the connect npm package. And again, you'll add the gitignore file for Node. So you can download it from this link. But like I said, you probably need to copy and paste the code. You're going to make a new file called server.js. It uses connect to listen for requests on port 3000, and it displays a message whenever it's running. I'll actually show you a sample of the completed lab in a moment. Inside your server.js, you are going to map 3 routes. You don't need to worry about mapping the route path. So your 3 URLs are going to be /me, /mom, and /dad. And in the handler for each route, you're going to display 1 or 2 sentences introducing this person. So for example, for me, localhost 3000 /mom would print out this message. So very similar to what we did in class today, but I want you to do a new project on your own. And instead of the root path, hello and goodbye, you're going to have the me, mom, and dad paths. And tell me something about you and your parents. And then to submit your lab, make a private Git repository called Comp2068 Lab1. Make sure to invite me and submit the link on Blackboard. So I created a version of the lab so you could see what it might look like. So here I've got my server.js, I've got my package.json and my gitignore. And if I wanted to run it, so at localhost 3000 /me, you get a line about me. at /mom, you get a little bit of info about my mom. And /dad, you get a little bit of info about my dad. Okay, so you have until next week. It's not that much code, but I want to give you practice. Yeah, tons of cheese. You ever need cheese, go see my dad. He's got you. He'll hook you up. So there should be basically 3 files in the project. Package.json. I guess also there's a package.lock JSON, which will get generated automatically. The server.js and the gitignore file. So there's your lab. That's what the output should be. So you have until next Tuesday at 5 to submit it, which is lots of time, as well as the review quiz in the lesson 4 folder. Does anybody have any questions about either the lab or the quiz? Okay. If you've got no questions, you're free to go. Have a great rest of your week and a good weekend. Thanks for coming today and for all of your feedback and participation. And if you have questions, you can book an appointment for tomorrow morning or just send me an email. If not, have an awesome week, and I will see all of you next Wednesday. Videos will be up a little bit later today. If you need a bit of help, I will stay in the WebEx room for a little while.